So, John, Enzo was known for choosing his drivers himself. How did he approach you, and how did he react to your championship in 1964?
Enzo Ferrari liked motorcyclists. He had begun with a motorcycling team, and so he thought that motorcyclists had a fire in the belly, as he explained it. This was one of his reasons, I think, for initially asking me. During 1960, which is when I first saw my first car race, from a cockpit actually, and I was also competing in world championships on two wheels. I raced one weekend on two wheels and one weekend on four wheels in Grand Prix. And he asked me out here, and I came out and went to Assistenza Clienti, the office in Modena, which then existed. And we had a meeting, and then I came out here to the factory and met engineer Keaty and all the team which was there. And I was shown this long list of drivers they had. And they said, we want you to come here and drive sports cars, drive Formula 1. And I thought, with all these drivers here, when am I going to have a look in? So I said, no. I said, we do not ask twice. But I went away, and at the end of 1962, there was a call and said, would you come along and see Mr. Ferrari? So I had duly turned up here in the office just across the road here, and new team for me, but also a new team at Ferrari, in that Keaty and many of the assistants had all left to set up the other team, including Phil Hill, of course, who had been world champion in 1961. And I joined, and that was it. And I think that initial feeling was he wanted someone from the world of two wheels.
What was your first ever pole position like? How did you feel? And how about your first race win?
Well, that was a little different. My first job, and I had to find this out very quickly, was to try and get the prototype cars, the P1 cars, all up to scratch, ready for the Sebring race and the Sebring endurance race. It meant that Formula 1 took a back seat. We did nothing on Formula 1 to start with. And so I went round and round Modena in the prototype car, developing this with Fantuzzi, the local panel basher, making modifications to the bodywork all the time. And we go to Sebring, and in fact I put the car fastest lap, so virtually on pole position. And this was after a little bit of the first problem I had with the then team manager, Mr. Dragoni, in that I had selected a car from all the testing we did, which was going to be my car. And when I arrived at Sebring, no, this was given to Mr. Rodriguez of the American NART team, and I was given a car which I hadn't had time to test. So testing took place, and there was myself and Ludovico Scaffiotti came along with me, and we tested the car and tried to get the bugs out of it in practice, but put the fastest time up, started a race. During the race we encountered problems with getting gassed in the cockpit because the rear hood on the engine cover was lifting and the fumes were coming in, something which we'd cured on the other cars. And we, with difficulty, won the race. So that was fantastic. The only thing is, Mr. Dragoni protested it and said that in fact the NART car, still a Ferrari, had won. But luckily my first wife was a fantastic timekeeper and lap charter, and her lap chart coincided with the official organisers. So the protest was overruled. I think the pasta and the vino, which was consumed in the back of the pits, had got into the way of the lap chart. But it was overcome, so I had my first win and my first experience of some of the politics.
John, during your career, did you make your racing decisions on an emotional or on a rational basis? And how do you think Enzo Ferrari made his decisions?
You've now really given me a difficult one, haven't you? I think that basically my racing decisions at tracks normally were, very sort of keenly thought out and very rational. At the same time, I think that some of my decisions relative to Ferrari, particularly when it came to the end, we had what they termed our divorce, were perhaps had too much of an emotional factor in them, and the same in many cases with Ferrari. That's one of the things which is so important. The emotion which surrounded Ferrari was tremendous, but at times it also got in its way, and this is why it's very important to have that international content, which of course you now have, and you have had for a number of years. And it's something which I was certainly trying to bring about at my time. Yes, on the other occasions you let things slip and you make emotional decisions, but generally your experience and everything else is what you draw upon, and you need to be pretty rational in doing that.
John, what was easier for you, being fast on a motorcycle or in a car, and why is that?
I had no problem when I first sat in the car in going quick. I had a little problem in going quick and being safe because I had no experience, so I had to deal with different conditions. Witness the fact that in I think my fifth race overall in cars, I put the Lotus on pole position for the Portuguese Grand Prix and led it for 2/3 of the race until making a silly mistake over crossing the tram lines which ran up the main straight a little too slightly. I should have been more abrupt in going across them, and I got the tyres stuck in them for a moment, which caused me to understeer. I went a little wide and clipped the curb and put me out of the race. But these are little things which you learnt, and so I had a whole learning curve because, as I mentioned, I'd never even seen a car race until I'd sat in a race car to start that first Formula Junior race at the beginning of 1960 at Goodwood. So, and after 2 other races I was in a Formula 1 car. So it was all rather sudden, but the feeling you get from a bike is fantastic, that relationship, that personal way you can control it in all ways. A car is perhaps not quite the same, but when you have a car properly set up, particularly on the sort of corners you get in a place like Spa, and you're on sort of really 10/10ths, then it's very, very similar, and you've got it all moving. It's a wonderful sensation. That relationship with a piece of machinery is what it's all about, and this makes the difference between winning and losing. But of course, you've got to have the right machinery.
John, why do you think we see so few drivers nowadays in multiple disciplines? For example, MotoGP and Formula 1.
I think that people are always chasing the next one. They're chasing the next one, and you've got to remember that in our day there was not the sort of money and rewards that you get today. And I think that many people who are successful both on the track and also relative to their earning capacity are sort of somewhat dubious about changing and taking that chance. In a way, I came about it because I felt that I'd realised most of my ambitions, and at that time the way I wanted to continue my motorcycling career was going to be curtailed by what Augusta wanted, who I was riding for. Augusta wanted me to do less races and only special races. I wanted to race more, And so that's why in 1 year I raced cars and bikes together. But I think I would have been tempted with Honda and such like all coming back. I would have been tempted actually to probably try bikes again on occasions, because I thought it was a tremendous challenge. But the challenge of the cars was tremendous, and of course you had a situation where it was a very different scene to what it is today. You didn't have the same reliability, you didn't have so many races, and when you were a driver for a team like Ferrari, of course, you did all sorts of things. You raced in GT cars, you raced in prototype cars, and you did an awful lot of testing of both the race cars, but also at times the road cars.
John, when you won your titles, first on 2 wheels and then on 4, cars had no downforce. Do you think downforce is the main reason why no one has repeated that feat of winning world titles in both disciplines?
No. I think that people follow their first dream for too long, often, and then find they are past that peak. I think all of us have a performance peak, and that performance peak, all the time you're on the ascendancy, I think you have the ability to change. If you get to the top, okay, you may be able to continue at what you're doing because you're counteracting perhaps age with experience, but relative to making a change, I don't think then becomes possible. So I think that what one has to do is make a conscious decision of saying, right, I've achieved this, but have a real sort of emotional drive to go into uncharted waters and make that change.